Hey, welcome into the House of L podcast. I'm Laurence Holmes. Thanks so much for hanging out. We are, as always, brought to you by Remy Martin. This might be a good weekend to enjoy a little bit of Remy Martin, whether it's a Remy sidecar or on the rocks, or if you want to have it with a little bit of ginger beer. There's all sorts of cocktails that you can come up with because Remy Martin is great, and we are a proud that they're so benevolent with their sponsorship of this here podcast. Thanks so much for hanging out. I don't ordinarily wear team gear. I usually don't do that, especially if I'm like presenting something, because you do want to try and keep a nice distance if you're going to be a critic. But I love this cap, first of all. Secondly, let me tell you something, and this is off the subject, but the Bulls don't ever need to do any other, in my opinion, any other city connect thing that doesn't incorporate the Chicago flag. This thing that they struck, this is perfection. It should always be the alternate jersey that they go to. They should never go to any other one. It should always be this. But that's a discussion for another time. But I'm rocking it because I think the Bulls got this thing right with Derrick Rose. And if you've listened to the score this past week, you know that I feel passionately about this subject. And I talked with Layla about it. We had a great conversation with Cam Smith. And if you're not checking out Cam Smith, I know some of you are getting used to him now that he's on CHSN. He is a really talented broadcaster, a great storyteller, and the perfect guy to cover Derrick Rose this week. Him and Casey Johnson did incredible work getting us ready for what's going to be Derrick Rose night. And then a couple hours ago, the Bulls announced that they are going to retire Derrick Rose's number one, and that'll be in a ceremony last year. Someone hit me up on Twitter and was like, "Hey, why aren't they just doing that tonight?" My guess, I don't know this. I haven't followed up on that. I will over the next couple of days, but my guess is logistical, that they want to make a thing out of this, like kind of what they've done with Derrick Rose Day. They want to pick the right opponent. They want to pick the right night. They want to make sure that they can reach out to people who might want to be there for something like this, if you know what I'm saying. Maybe a couple of guys whose jerseys are already up there. You reach out and say, "Hey, is there any night that it might work for you to come back to celebrate Derrick Rose? Because we will work around your schedule." If that, and you want to get everything else right, like you want to lead up to it. This is an opportunity. The Bulls are, as an organization, there's some heat loss. And think about, you haven't thought about the Bulls this much in a long time as you have this week. So I think that it makes sense for them to wait a little bit, figure it out, and make it the best party that they can make it. And I applaud them for this. Like, this is to me, it's a lot of things. It's a recognition of a player whose contribution is hard to measure because you have to add in all of the things. And I think that this week, people got a taste of the impact that Derrick Rose has had on the city of Chicago. Like, that's whether it's him doing the benefit over at Simeon and being in uniform and being there with his son, and the way that people reacted to that, the flower shop, people just wanted to come and see D Rose, man. That line was 4 blocks long. People just wanted to come and see and be around Derrick Rose. And I think that his impact on this city is immeasurable. His impact on Chicago basketball. And let me take you back, because I had this kind of whirlwind couple of months back in 2020 where I went from covering the Super Bowl to covering All-Star game, and I'll go back to that in a second, to then covering spring training, and then the world ended and we all had to go inside. When Chicago hosted the All-Star game, being there for that was amazing. Like, I get proud of Chicago in a lot of different facets, whether it is neighbor helping neighbor, the architecture, the beauty, my love for the South Side, the charitable components of people who are here in the city, how hard students work, because I see that in my classroom, how hard people work overall. I was so proud of Chicago that weekend of the All-Star game, because I think that they did a great job, and TNT allowed for Chicago to do its thing. Chicago basketball was on display, and it felt great. It felt like the right tone was set. Having comment out there, like basically giving you a poem to Chicago basketball. It was represented in a way that, as a lifelong Chicagoan, I couldn't have been more proud. And that's the part that people will miss if they boil Derrick Rose down to just numbers. It misses the actual impact that he had. See, to me, the numbers are rare enough. Like, my whole thing is, how many MVPs has your franchise had? He's one of them. And the number's real low. So, yeah, I think that there's an argument on the numbers alone, but to me, that's missing the point. The point is, he is one of the biggest what ifs in sports history, and especially in Chicago sports history. But even after 2012, we saw in 2015 him stare LeBron in the face and make plays. And I mean, that made a believer out of me. I mean, this whole run that he's been on. And I'll tell you, I have some bias here. I am in Derrick Rose's documentary, Pooh. And it's funny because you end up having to argue some of the same things about Derrick Rose, 10 years later, or however long it was since I did that documentary. It's crazy. By the way, a buddy of mine produced that doc, and it's really good. You should check it out. It's really, really good. It's called Pooh. Any hoozle. I'm glad that the Bulls recognize this, and I think they got it right. I think everything about this has been right. And I know that it's hard for some people to understand it. It shouldn't be, especially if you're around it. But I'll say, I don't even think you have to be a native Southsider like I am to get it. I think most people who are around here get it, and they understand what it is to be from Inglewood, and for him to be the number one pick in the draft with his hometown team, to be introduced as from Chicago, Derrick Rose, to carry that weight while you're still trying to figure out how to be an adult. It's not easy. And there were bumps along the way. There were things that could have been handled better. But I think that it's so beautiful to see the man that Derrick Rose has turned into. We love guys that put on for the city. You see it. You saw it 2 weeks ago, right? When Taj was here, and people just wanting Taj to get into the game so that they could show him how much they appreciated the hard work that he put in when he was a Bull. With Derrick, it was the talent plus the hard work plus the way he represented us. Think about the All-Star game. And I know Derrick has talked about it. he's talked about, hey, I just kind of didn't know what was going on. So I just kind of was in my default setting of what's going on. It was a point of pride for Chicagoans to see LeBron and D Wade and everyone up there dancing, and Derrick Rose off to the side like, what is y'all goofies up here doing? You can't tell me that you didn't feel that way. You would be lying to me if you told me that you felt differently than Derrick Rose in that moment. We were all Derrick Rose in that moment. We were all looking at them like, what is these goofies doing? We here to hoop. We here to hoop, fam. Y'all might be here to dance. We here to hoop. And whether it was right or wrong, or Derrick's I should be enough, I don't need to go out recruiting, whether it's right or wrong. And there are arguments on both sides of that. At the time, Bulls fans were right there with him. No, we don't need nobody help. We don't need no one to go out there and try and bring Carmelo up in here or convince LeBron they should want to play with Derrick Rose. He's the MVP. And that's another thing. I go back and forth on the LeBron Jordan thing. But if LeBron's your GOAT, if you've built the place where LeBron is your GOAT, who was the only person who won MVP when LeBron was in his absolute prime? D. Mother Rose. That's who. And that's why he deserves to be celebrated. He deserves to have his number retire like it's going to be next year. And I'm happy for him. I'm happy that I talked with him, was it last year, 2 years ago? I talked with him when he was in town, and we were talking about chess, and we were joking about chess because he's become an avid chess player. He does chess tournaments. Like, think about that. Think about the unassuming kid and how now he's using chess as a way to reach young people. The renaissance of Derrick Rose has been amazing, and it needs to be recognized and respected. His game needs to be recognized and respected. His impact on the city needs to be recognized and respected. So shout out to the Bulls for understanding that and doing it and doing what the right thing is. No one should wear number 1, period. No one should have that jersey because we know what that number means. Anyone who have watched the Derrick Rose Bulls in that 8-year stretch of watching the Derrick Rose Bulls, you know what number 1 means. You know it. And no one else should wear it. It's amazing to me like how much he actually does mean to people. And I do say this as someone who grew up on the south side of Chicago, and there are times when you feel like you don't necessarily fit into a place, even if you have excellence attached to who it is that you are. Derrick was able to break through that. Yeah, he is Inglewood's champion. He is the South Side's champion. He's also the West Side's champion. He's Chicago's champion. And he doesn't need an actual championship to be our champion. And that's the part that people forget. This city loves him. Bulls Nation loves him. And we know what we felt when Kevin Harlan is going, Rose is down, grabbing at the knee. We all know how we all felt in that moment. Someone likened him to, this generation's Gale Sayers. I think that there is some truth to that for Chicago fans. His career went on, like he I'll give you another reason why this hits so hard for people. Go back to the 50-point game that Derrick scored from Minnesota. Tell me you didn't tear up when you saw him tear up, because you'd be lying to me again. Seeing what he turned into New York, in New York. It's apropos. I'm glad they picked this night to do it. And how Knicks fans feel about him. Like, it's pretty easy. It's a pretty easy decision, and it was for me. It's so funny because I kind of thought like maybe they would announce it tonight. Like, I've been thinking that the last couple of days of, it's interesting that they're not doing like a jersey retirement, but they're doing like a thing, and it's a big old thing. And maybe they would announce it like as a surprise at the end of it. But I'm glad they did it this way. And I'm glad that we're all going to get to see it. He deserves it. And Bulls fans deserve a little bit of joy. And think about how much joy Derrick Rose brought you. Heartbreak too. But think about how much joy that he brought you. And how he represents this city no matter where he goes. And for some of us, that truly means something. I think for most of us, that truly means something. And I'm glad, pun intended, that he's going to get his roses, that people are going to be able to stand and cheer, and they will be loud for him tonight and when he gets his jersey retired. Let the party begin. He's earned it. You've earned it as a Bulls fan. And now we get to just enjoy it. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you listening. If you're on Apple or Spotify, you should come and join the YouTube page. You could actually see my Bulls cap and the weird stuff that's on my wall in my office. House of L has a YouTube page. You can just subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. I'm not charging. I'm not doing the subscription-based thing, at least not yet. I think this has actually worked out okay. So I'm trying not to make it, unless you guys want me to do like subscription-based stuff. If you feel like you're willing to give me like $2 or $3 a month for it, maybe I'll change my mind. But so far, so good. This has been fine. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy all of the festivities around Derrick Rose now and next year. And I'm glad that we were able to discuss it. And it feels good to be right. I'm not going to lie about that. Definitely feels good to be right. I'll talk to you next time. Peace.